What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Wednesday, July 2nd edition of the Ship My Money Show. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoney DFS. 10-game slate tonight. No real weather concerns, it doesn't look like. So very different than yesterday. I got burned on the Red Sox. My logic there was it was very obvious they were going to end up in a lengthy delay. They started anyway. I figured that meant they were going to be patient. It did not. So I got burned there, but doesn't look like we have anything to worry about on that front tonight. So that's nice. 10 games, plenty of good spots to get to. Going to go through game by game, taking a look at what my player exposures would look like if the slate started right now, talking through each game, strategy, all of that stuff. If you have questions, feel free to throw them in chat. I will hit on those as I see them if I have anything to say. Going to use the Run the Sims projections as usual. You can sign up using the link in the description below. 2 subscription options for you there. $100 a month gets you the entire projections package. The fully detailed projections you see on the screen. You download them, upload into whatever optimizer Sims tool you want. You can use them for betting if you want to. As you can see, all the stat categories coming out of our in-house play-by-play Sims. So a lot of different ways you can use these. If that doesn't make sense for you, you don't play enough volume, whatever the reason. We do also have the MLB Draft Caddy option, $10 a month, and that overlays the DraftKings projection straight onto the DraftKings lineups page. Good for hand building if you're playing a few lineups, good for late swapping. That is also included in the full package as well. So 2 options for you there. Sign up, check that out. Also, whether you subscribe or not, our Discord is free. Link for that is in the description below as well. I always forget to mention that, but come hang out in there. We're around trying to build that up a bit, so check that out also. So going to dive into this one. Yankees taking on the Blue Jays. Oh, one other thing before I forget. PGA tomorrow. We do have our Sims live, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. Promo code Davis gets you 10% off of the PGA Sims. That is the first Sims product that those of us at Endgame have put out since acquiring Run the Sims. And by those of us, I essentially mean the first Sims that Nerdy Tenor has put together and put out for us to use. So excited about that. Excited to keep building off of that, have more stuff coming. I know he's still adding a little bit to that. We have something else coming up for PGA as well. But that is live. PGA starts tomorrow, Thursday. So check that out. Promo code Davis gets you 10% off of PGA Sims. Now getting into it, Cam said, how does Trevor Williams still have a job? Yeah, he's not terrible, but when he's bad, it's like really bad. I also had a decent amount of him on the early slate just because it was a small slate and negative correlation with popular offense, all of that. So yeah, wish he had not done what he did. Yankees taking on Toronto in Toronto, first game of the night. About a 4.5 total for the Blue Jays, about 5 for New York. The Blue Jays have Jose Barrios on the mound. Yankees have Will Warren. $7,800 price tag to Warren. Barrios coming in at $8,200. 10% ownership coming into Warren, 12% to Barrios. I'm right around the field on Warren, getting to 8% of him. I'm a bit below the field on Barrios. A little surprised he's getting 12% ownership right now, but the projection on him is reasonable for the price tag. Obviously, a dangerous matchup going up against New York. By Yankee standards, it's not a super high total coming in around 5, but that's still a high total in general. So a little surprised by that, but it also probably just speaks to the quality of pitching on tonight's slate. There's some good arms, but definitely a lot to be desired as well in a lot of these spots. Some of the good arms also pitched either on the afternoon slate in Mackenzie Gore's case, on the early slate in Nick Pavetta's case, and Sonny Gray's case. So the main slate tonight, it has a couple really good arms to get to, but I guess sort of understand why Barrios is getting ownership. 21% strikeout percentage in 102 innings pitched this year. Stuff has been below average. Command's been average. I don't know. I kind of expected it to be like 6-7%. Maybe it comes down by lock. But either way, I'm not really getting much at that 12% projected ownership. I'm only getting to about 4. Warren does have good strikeout stuff, has a tough strikeout matchup against Toronto. Overall this season, they haven't been a great team offensively. They haven't lived up to the name value in their lineup, although they have started to pick it up a bit lately. They are 14th in WRC plus. That was lower for a lot of the season, but strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching this season, On their active roster, just 15.7%. That is last in baseball by 1.5 points. Kansas City is 29th at 17.2%. Very, very difficult team to strike out. That said, Warren is only 7,800, and he does have the third highest strikeout percentage on this slate. Third highest strikeout percentage on this slate. Mizorowski has a higher strikeout percentage through like 3 starts. Hunter Brown has a higher strikeout percentage. That's it. 80 innings pitched for Will Warren, 29.5% K percentage this year. That's up nearly 5 points from last season. So the stuff's there, and the price tag is reasonable. It's not like you're paying the typical price of a guy with a 29% strikeout percentage. So there is plenty of room for upside, even though this matchup is really, really difficult. So I'm getting around the field there at 10%. Offensively here, starting on the Yankee side, like I said, Berríos is not a great pitcher by any stretch. The Yankees do have plenty of power against him. You're not getting much ownership coming into the Yankees. I am getting a little bit over the field, especially on the bats that mostly, I would really want to get to from New York. Ben Rice getting about 7% ownership right now, 15% of my lineups. He still has catcher eligibility on DraftKings, so that makes him more appealing as well. Giancarlo Stanton, I'm 2x the field at 12%. I have 10% Judge at 9% projected ownership, 9% Jazz at 8% ownership, and then you're getting 5% or less ownership and personal exposures to the rest of the Yankees. Berríos so far this season has been reverse splits in terms of power numbers allowed. That is a bit of a change for him from past seasons. Last year, he was completely the same, 175 expected ISO to both sides of the plate. Prior to last year, he had given up more power to lefties, and then now you've seen it completely reverse. 155 expected ISO with nearly a 24% K percentage against lefties this year, only a 19% strikeout percentage, and a 255 expected ISO against righties. Ben Rice from the left side, he's cheap, still a good play. Obviously, like I said, right now my highest owned guy from the Yankees. I'm not saying not to play Jazz, not to play Bellinger, but Stanton and Judge look really good considering what Berríos has struggled with this year. Judge, of course, is expensive at $6,500. You do have a Coors game on the slate. You have plenty of stuff to pay for tonight. Giancarlo Stanton, though, coming in at $3,300 batting cleanup. That is an insane price tag for somebody that has Stanton's power. Obviously, he's a flawed hitter. He has been for his entire career, but massive, massive power against a guy in Berríos that doesn't miss a lot of bats. I really like getting to him. I'm curious to see if that ownership changes. I do think that there is, I'm pretty confident there is probably, if like Berríos' ownership were to drop to 6% from the 12% that it's projected at right now, you'd probably see the Yankees ownership, increase by like 1.5x or something like that. And, you see Stanton end up coming in at like 10%, Judge at 12 to 15. Wouldn't be surprised if that ended up happening, but either way, they are going to look good here. And that price on Stanton just really stands out from an upside standpoint. You're just not going to find, like, obviously the outfield is loaded on any slate, much less a 10-game slate, but you're not going to find many sub $3,500 hitters that you would be less surprised hit 2 home runs in a game than Giancarlo Stanton. So he does really stand out at that price. Ben Rice stands out because of his absurd catcher eligibility and pretty cheap price tag as well. On the Blue Jays side against Warren, Devin Scott mentioned Warren's splits against righties. Yeah, good point there as well. Striking out 24% of left-handed hitters this year, striking out nearly 37% of the right-handed hitters that he has faced. Sub 100 expected ISO against right-handed hitters, only a 257 expected WOBA, just north of 600 pitches thrown against them. The Blue Jays do not really believe in left-handed bats. In tonight's lineup, they do have 3. Jimenez is leading off, so that's a lineup bump for him. Barger's batting 5th. Will Wagner is hitting 7th, but predominantly right-handed lineup. Springer, Guerrero, Kirk, Clement, 4 of your top 6 hitters are right-handed, and those are just insane splits. So again, tough strikeout spot, and it's not like these are your average right-handed hitters. In a lot of cases, they're above average, but sets up really nicely from a split standpoint for Will Warren as well. So for the Blue Jays, I'm not really getting there. Neither is the field. The most ownership is coming into Guerrero at 5%, 4 to 5% to Jimenez and Barger as well. My highest owned Blue Jays bat is Jimenez at 4%. it's just not a spot that I'm really that interested in getting to. I think Warren's a good pitcher. He's not getting a ton of ownership, though, so it's not like the negative correlation really comes into play. And even the lefties against him this year, while he's been much, much better against righties than lefties, he's still been very good against lefties. 152 expected ISO allowed, 24% strikeout percentage. He's not one of these pitchers that, is just K-ing every right-handed hitter and then giving up a home run to every lefty. He's pitching well against lefties and then just absolutely dominating righties. So I don't really see a lot here that makes me want to get to them. If you want to get to them, I think the argument in their favor would just be start naming the guys in this lineup, and they're good and they're not going to be popular. But like on a 10-game slate, you can find there's no shortage of teams, especially a 10-game slate that also has Coors Field. There's no shortage of teams that are going to have good hitters at, 5% ownership. Even the other side of this game, which again, I think the ownership on the Yankees may come up a little bit, but the way it's being projected right now, you're barely even getting more ownership to the Yankees than the Blue Jays. So even if it ends up not being the Yankees, like if that ownership comes up, there's going to be other teams that have, higher implied run totals, better or just as good hitters throughout their lineup that are also similarly owned. Milwaukee taking on the Mets in New York, game 2 of a doubleheader. Mizrowski going for the Brewers, Blade Tidwell going for the Mets. I am not getting to either of them. Tidwell is getting 8% ownership. He's only 5K. I've said it a million times over the years. 5K for a starting pitcher is underpriced. Like, it's automatically a good value, assuming you're not talking about an opener that's going to go like 1 inning or something like that. There we go. Is Brazoban opening for? I'm guessing Brazoban is opening for the Mets. I hadn't seen, but either way, 5K for Tidwell, getting 8% ownership right now. Maybe that comes down a little bit. I don't really expect to have to get there on a 10-game slate. There's going to be enough hitting value. The matchup also against Milwaukee is not a good one. They have plenty of good hitters in their lineup. Also, just a difficult team to strike out. The bigger reason why it's a difficult matchup. So he is expected to be the long guy here. Most recently in the majors, he pitched on the 27th. He went 3 1/3 through 73 pitches. So I think he is a true follower. It's probably not, he goes out there and throws 2 innings, especially in a doubleheader. I would expect him to, if he's pitching well, throw 75, 80 pitches. But at 5K, I just don't really think you need him. If you do absolutely need a cheap SP2, he's 5K, sure. But he will project around 2X. But he isn't somebody that I'm really getting to. Mizrowski, on the other hand, I'd love to get to him. Like, the stuff is unbelievably good, but a couple of things working against him. One, the matchup with the Mets is very difficult. This is a team that is tough to strike out. They obviously have a lot of good hitters throughout their lineup. We have not gotten, I don't think, their lineup for this game. So there is always some chance that they just run some awful lineup out there. But the other big problem is that Mizrowski is $10,500. The stuff warrants it. Obviously, we don't know, what the strikeout percentage ends up being at the major league level yet. He's only thrown 16 innings. Through those 16 innings, he has a 34% strikeout percentage. He's averaging 99.7 miles per hour on his fastball. His stuff plus grade is 128.1, which is just unbelievably good. The stuff's incredible, but he's $10,500 in a tough spot against the Mets. He's not getting any ownership if you want to go there, but it's not a spot that I'm getting to, even though I would obviously like to, just from a talent standpoint. But I'm not paying all the way up for that against the Mets. On the Milwaukee side, I am not getting there. The field's not really getting there. Yelich getting the most ownership at 4%. They do have a team total between 4.5 and 5. I mean, this is another team where if you just want some solid bats at pretty low ownership, you could go there. We did get their lineup. Power just posted it in chat. Frelick, Contreras, Yelich, Chourio, Turang, Hoskins, 1 through 6. That's a solid 1 through 6. You have Joey Ortiz batting 8th, hit a grand slam last game. Not that matters. Eric Haas catching, batting 9th, but Contreras is still in the lineup, just DHing. So 1 through 6, it's solid. And then the bottom of the order is cheap. So I'm a little surprised you're not getting that. I'm not getting to them at all, and that they're not getting like any ownership, given that they do have a decent total, but there's just a lot of high totals on this slate as well. Just kind of like scrolling through. 5 for the Yankees, a little north of 5 for Cincinnati, Boston, right around 5 for both sides of the Angels and Braves game. Cubs pushing 5, Houston pushing like 12, Dodgers 6. So I get it, I guess. It's just a lot of offenses, but certainly if the unknown Brewers score 10 runs, it's not like it would be shocking. It's not like it's a horrible spot for them or anything like that. But there are better spots. There are better parks to hit in. There are more talented offenses overall. So I guess I understand it on second thought. For the Mets, no real interest there. If you're going there, it's very simple. It's Juan Soto is good, Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo. These guys can all obviously hit the shit out of the ball, but you have a million good plays on the slate, and you're taking guys against the dude with the nastiest stuff, and they're not cheap. All of Lindor, Alonso, and Soto are at least 5K. Nimmo, 4K, is pretty cheap for his skill set. 3% Nimmo is my highest owned Met right now. 3% Lindor, 2% Alonso. The highest owned for the field. 4% coming into each of Soto, Nimmo, and Lindor. So again, the talent's there, but certainly not a spot that stands out to me at all. And there's plenty of guys, good hitters, maybe not as good, but good hitters, very good hitters in much better spots that are going to be relatively low owned tonight as well. Cincinnati taking on Boston in Fenway. This is the one that burned me last night, and it looks like I'm going to be going right back to it tonight, which has never worked out in my life. So I would recommend staying away, I guess. But Nick Martinez starting for the Reds, Brennan Bernardino opening for the Red Sox. They, again, burned Dick Fitz last night in that terrible decision to start a game. And then tonight you're getting Bernardino as the opener, and Criswell expected to be the long guy at 6,400. Not looking to get the Criswell here. I don't think that you need to on this slate. The Reds have a total around 5. So not planning to get to any pitching from Boston. Also not planning to get to any pitching from the Reds. Nick Martinez is getting 6% ownership. He's 7K. This Red Sox team will strike out. That's the one thing that Martinez does have working in his favor. This Red Sox active roster, and I don't believe we have their actual lineup yet, but their active roster has the third highest strikeout percentage, tied for second against right-handed pitching this year. The only team with a higher strikeout percentage is Colorado. So essentially, Boston is tied for the highest strikeout percentage amongst major league teams this year against right-handed pitching. So Martinez does just kind of automatically have some upside there, given that the Red Sox strike out a lot. But high total here. The game's in Fenway, not a good spot to pitch in. And Martinez isn't any sort of great pitcher either. Comes into this game with an 18% strikeout percentage, below average stuff. Does have very good command, 108.7 pitching or location plus grade this year. So that's, what he has working for him. When he's on, he can keep the ball on the ground. So if you wanted to go there, he's 7K. Maybe he just kind of ground balls and strikeouts, gets, 6 strikeouts, 6 innings, a bunch of ground balls. He can get it done. But it's not a spot that it looks like I'll be getting to right now. And like I said, I'm not getting the Criswell. No real ownership projected to him either. Offensively, I am getting to a lot of this one, at least on one side of it. Starting on the Cincinnati side, I'm not getting much here. Encarnacion Strand in 5% of my lineups. That's the high mark for me from the Reds right now. De La Cruz in 4%. He's the highest owned hitter from Cincinnati at 7% owned. 5% ownership coming into McLean at 4K. I wouldn't mind getting more Cincinnati. They are cheap. They have a high total. The matchup isn't ideal. You're going to get the opener followed by Criswell. So the first time through the order, you have Friedel facing a lefty in Bernardino. You have De La Cruz from his weak side of the plate against Bernardino. I'm sure that's why Boston decided to do this. And then you get Criswell coming in for, I don't know exactly when he'll come in, but some combination of Hayes, Steer, Stevenson, Lux moving down the order. Criswell has spent most of this year not with the Red Sox, but going back to last season, not a horrible pitcher. Again, not much of a sample at all this year, but since last year, 166 expected ISO to righties, 108 to lefties, doesn't get strikeouts, which is why one of the reasons I'm not particularly interested for DFS, but he's not somebody that gives up a ton of power. Now, this park will obviously give up power on its own. And when you factor in the pricing, I do think the Reds are, a pretty decent value stack, but I'm not really getting there. And also didn't have their lineup when I ran stuff. Encarnacion Strand is not in the lineup, so ignore him being my highest owned hitter. But the rest of the main pieces do look like they are in there. You get a little bit of value down at the bottom as well. The Boston side is what I'm really getting to right now. I do want to point out that I think it's very likely their ownership ends up increasing. If ownership projections don't increase on Boston between now and the start of the slate, I will probably, in my process, just manually bump them because of how much more I'm getting. Normally, that's a really strong indicator that ownership projections are wrong, because my process, in part, it's not intentionally moving my exposures closer to ownership, but I do things to diversify. And in general, in most spots, I end up around the field on individual players. If I'm 2.5x, that's, normally that'll happen in a couple of spots, but it's usually a pretty good indicator if I'm well over the field on a particular pitcher, or if I'm just, 3 to 5x the field on an entire stack, that ownership projections are just wrong. And that's what's happening with the Red Sox right now. 10% projected ownership to Toro at 2,800, 10% projected ownership to Duran. I have 31% of each of those guys right now. 5% projected to Abreu, to Narvaez. I'm at 23% Abreu, 17 Narvaez. I'm 2x on Story, who's getting 7%. I'm 3x on Rafaela, Meyer, Hamilton. I have 12 to 16% of them. They're all getting like 4% ownership. Roman Anthony's in 10% of my lineups at 4% owned. I think it's very, very likely that Toro ends up coming in 15 to 20%. Duran comes in 15 to 20%, and the rest of these guys are like 10%. So I still think they'll be good plays. But if the ownership did look like this, I guess that lineup came out. Steven just said no Narvaez. But if that ownership, so no Narvaez, Duran, Anthony, Toro, Story, Abreu, Rafaela, Meyer, Gonzalez, and Wong. No Hamilton and no Narvaez. Most of the main pieces in there, though. It does make the stack a little bit weaker since you don't have a catcher batting in the middle of the order. Not that I think Narvaez is great, but he's batting in the middle of the order when he plays. But either way, I think that ownership just comes up at the very least on Toro, Duran, and to some extent Abreu. So I do like Boston here. Last time I stacked against Martinez, I think he almost threw a no-hitter. That was against San Diego. He's not, like I said, he's not a bad pitcher, but he is somebody that doesn't miss a lot of bats. He is pitching in a very friendly hitting environment tonight in Fenway. 166 expected ISO to righties this year, 186 to lefties. Again, he doesn't give up tons and tons of power or anything like that, but Boston is just in a good offensive environment. They're reasonably priced. The most expensive hitter in this lineup is Duran at 4,500. I think that's what's driving a lot of this as well. Like Abraham Toro, for example, he's somebody that earlier in the year you would have some pinch hit risk when the Red Sox had options, when you had Devers, when you had a healthy Tristan Casas, when you had Alex Bregman, but none of those guys are coming in the pinch hit. So Toro's just kind of playing start to finish. He's actually hitting better this year than he has in the past as well, like a 177 expected ISO against right-handed pitching this season. And he's just still really cheap at 2,800. Duran hasn't hit for a ton of power this year, but he gives you stolen base upside and he still gives you some power. Abreu has like a 270 expected ISO, give or take, against right-handed pitching at 4,400. Story hasn't been good most of the year, but there is still power there, and he's 3,700. So it's just the upside for the Red Sox and the cheap prices. I do think they are kind of comparable to the Reds, so I'm a little surprised that my personal exposures right now favor the Red Sox so heavily, but that probably does in part have to do with sort of giving away the first at bat for guys like Friedel and De La Cruz. Not to say that they can't do anything against Bernardino, but it's less than, it's not the matchup you would want. But I think they're just another good value stack, very high upside spot. I would be surprised if their ownership stays as low as it was projected when I ran stuff. Atlanta hosting the Los Angeles Angels. One of the best strikeout matchups in baseball for right-handed pitching. Didier Fuentes on the mound for Atlanta at $6,800. Yusei Kikuchi on the mound for the Angels at $7,700. Another game with a high total here. I believe it's coming in around 10. Double checking that right now. We have it listed at 9.5 on the screen. Looks like 9.5. So another high total here. Kikuchi not getting any ownership, which is a little surprising to me. This is another one where he showed up in 25% of my lineups. To me, that probably means he's getting 10, 12% ownership, not the 5 that he's projected for. He's only 7,700, and that's what's driving him into lineups. This is not a great pitching slate, especially when you factor in the salaries. one of the most or the most talented pitcher on the slate, Mizorowski, is extremely expensive. Nobody's getting to him. And so it just makes the strikeout upside that Kikuchi gives you at 7,700 more appealing. That strikeout percentage for him is trending up. It's up to 24% now. For a lot of this year, he was living down in that like 21% range, finally starting to get it back together, at least somewhat. 28% last year, 24% this year. The matchup isn't good. I mean, the Braves obviously have good hitters throughout their entire lineup. I don't think it's safe at all, but if you're going to give me one of the higher strikeout percentages on the slate at 7,700 and 4 or 5% ownership, I'm going to play a lot of it in large field tournaments. If he gets up to that like 10, 12% range, that's probably where I end up as well. So that's another one to keep an eye on. I think it probably ends up coming in higher than I have it projected right now. But regardless of where the ownership comes in, I think that it's just your typical boom or bust spot. Very good strikeout stuff. Not a great pitcher overall, facing an offense that has tons of power. Against right-handed hitters so far this season, Kikuchi has a 22.5% strikeout percentage. He's also allowed a 215 expected ISO. Lefties have not done anything against him whatsoever. 30% strikeout percentage, 239 expected WOBA, sub 100 expected ISO. That's not to say you can't play Matt Olson, but he hits left-handed pitching well, but Kikuchi has been really, really good against lefties. Not good against righties, though, and most of this lineup is right-handed. Acuna, Riley, Ozuna. Jurickson Profar is back and batting 5th. Albies hitting 6th. Sean Murphy kicked down to 7. Nick Allen batting 9. So not the most exciting bottom of the order, with Harris hitting 8th, Allen hitting 9, but top of the order at least. Obviously, a lot of right-handed power here. Acuna, Riley, Ozuna in particular. And so it is scary for Kikuchi, but also plenty of strikeout upside, and at least right now, not very popular and definitely not very expensive. Fuentes on the other side, 6,800. I'm getting 4%. He's getting 5% ownership. I thought he might be a little bit more popular, and I thought I might be getting a little bit more just because of the strikeout matchup against the Angels. Talked about it yesterday with Grant Holmes in the article that I wrote. It's such a boomer bust spot, and I just saw somebody mention it in chat too. For the Angels, this is a team that if you go through their lineup, they have expected ISOs north of 200 against right-handed pitching from Zach Neto, from Mike Trout, from Taylor Ward, from Joe Adell. They do not have Ohapi in the lineup tonight, which is actually a strikeout downgrade in addition to a bit of a power downgrade. D'Arnaud does have some power, so does Soler. But there's a lot of power in this lineup. Shanuel, not a ton of power, but still like a 160 expected ISO. There's also tons of strikeouts. Now, Ohapi has struck out like 35% of the time against right-handed pitching. So he's one of the higher strikeout rates in this lineup. And he's not, typically in the lineup. He's not in there tonight. So that does make it a bit lower just by default. Fuentes, not much time in the majors, only 2 starts so far this season. He projects to strike out around 20% of hitters, 28.9% strikeout percentage in the minors this year, 9 total starts, only 1 at AAA, 5 at AA, 3 in high A. So you want to discount that strikeout percentage quite a bit, given that it wasn't even at the upper levels of the minor leagues for the most part. But at the same time, these Angels will strike out against anybody. He is cheap, but just doesn't seem like it's particularly necessary. So I'm right around the field there. Offensively, starting on the Angels side, I am getting a lot of them. This is another team that just isn't getting ownership. And I don't know, maybe it's just because you do have Houston with like a 6.5 total in Colorado. And you're going to get ownership there. And then it's a 10-game slate where, like, the more times I say, wow, I can't believe this team's that low owned, the more likely it is they actually are low owned, because people are just going to be spreading out to these spots that look good. Like the Yankees look good. The Reds and the Red Sox look good. The Angels look good. The Braves on the other side, I'm sure, look good, even though I haven't gotten there yet. So the more times that I'm surprised by it, I guess the more likely it is that it's just accurate. And all these teams outside of Houston are going to be 5 to 10% owned. But 8% ownership coming into Trout, 7 to Neto, 6 to Adell, 6 to d'Arnaud, 5 to Rengifo, less than 5 to everybody else. I'm getting 25% Mike Trout right now, 20% Neto, 19 Adell, 16 Shanuel, 13 Ward, 11 Soler, 10 apiece on Rengifo and d'Arnaud. Not really getting the Christian Moore at the bottom of the order, but obviously if you're playing a bunch of lineups and stacking them, you can go to him to mix things up too. But like I said, there's just no shortage of power in this lineup, and you are getting a pitcher in Fuentes that doesn't project to be a great strikeout pitcher. So you should get the ball in play more than usual from these Angels. So I like the strikeout upside here. You get stolen base upside from guys like Neto as well. And they're cheap. Neto is $5K. Obviously, that's not cheap. But Trout, $4,500, the next most expensive guy in the lineup. You have Ward at $4,300. Everybody else is sub $4K. $2,700 for Rengifo, $2,500 for d'Arnaud. So I do like getting to the Angels here. And that could be another reason that I'm getting so much Kikuchi. Not that it's a big point of emphasis to pair starting pitching with the corresponding offense, but there is some positive correlation there. So generally, I will see that kind of work together where if it's a pitcher that doesn't project well, stacking their offense isn't going to just like make me play them. But if you just have a bucket of high upside, middling projection, risky pitchers all priced the same, and I'm playing one of their offenses, then I'm going to end up with more of that pitcher too, probably. So that could kind of be going hand in hand where getting to Kikuchi and getting to the Angels is kind of just like pulling them both up a little bit. You can get to good pitching, like Anthony just mentioned. You have one pitcher pulling 50+% ownership. That is not cheap in Gilbert. So that's helping me get to him. And it's the same thing with the Red Sox too. So right now, at least getting to a lot of the Angels. On the Braves side, not getting as much of them. They are not nearly as inexpensive, and I am getting to a lot of Kikuchi. Like I said, I would like to be getting both sides here. I thought there would be a decent chance I was, because I do try and negatively correlate across my lineups within the set of lineups that I'm playing, but that's not the case for me right now. But this is another team getting 5 to 10% ownership across the board, 10% coming into Riley, who's only 4,100. Price tag on him just keeps falling. He's been unlucky from an expected ISO versus actual ISO standpoint so far this season. Only 79 plate appearances against lefties, but his actual ISO is about 65 points lower than his expected ISO. I believe it's similar against righties. Acuna hasn't, 35 plate appearances against lefties this year, but overall he's been very good. So Riley's in 5% of my lineups, 10% for the field. Acuna is in 11% of the field's lineups. I'm not getting to him right now, which I honestly hate. But for whatever reason, I'm just not getting to too much of the Braves. Again, I think they're a high upside stack. The less Kikuchi I get, the more I probably get to the Braves as well. Cleveland taking on the Cubs in Chicago. This game has one of the lower totals, still not super low, but lower than others. Doesn't look like wins should matter much in this one, which means that this is a relatively pitcher-friendly park. We have Tanner Bybee going for Cleveland. We have Shota Imanaga going for the Cubs. 11% ownership coming into both of them. I'm getting to 6% Imanaga. I'm not getting too much of Tanner Bybee. Bybee's price tag is affordable at $7,500. The matchup is just absolutely brutal against this Cubs offense. Their active roster ranks 23rd in strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching this year. They are top 10 in WRC+. We have their lineup. It is a normal one. Everybody in this lineup is good. Matt Shaw, not good yet, but probably will be. Happ, Tucker, Suzuki, Crow Armstrong, Swanson, Bush, Kelly, Horner, Shaw, just tough at bat after tough at bat. So if you are going to Bybee here, it's because of the price tag. He is a more talented pitcher than $7,500. So far this season, striking out 20.9% of hitters. That is down significantly from last year, 26.3% last year, so down about 5.5 points. Command hasn't been as good. Stuff's actually been the same, if not better, but really tough matchup for him here against the Cubs. So at 11% ownership, I'm not really getting there. If you flip-flop this, it's kind of weird to me that you would get 11% ownership to Bybee and 5 to Kikuchi. I would expect them to be a lot closer. And if that happens, then, I probably lose some Kikuchi and maybe I start getting to a little bit more Bybee. But if he really is going to be more popular than Kikuchi, that's another reason that I would just be prioritizing Kikuchi in that range, given that we do have him projected a little bit better. There's the bottom of the Braves order, I think, is certainly weaker than any part of this Cubs order. Imanaga, like I said, getting 11% ownership at 8,500. He's in 6% of my lineups. Not a great strikeout matchup. Not a great strikeout pitcher. So far this season, Imanaga, 49 innings pitched, 18.7% strikeout percentage, down 6 points from last year. Very good command, 112 location plus grade. Stuff is solid too, 98.5 stuff plus grade. So solid pitcher overall. probably sees a rebound in that strikeout percentage sooner than later, at least somewhat closer to last year. But a matchup against Cleveland, not necessarily where you're going to see that happen. And he's not super cheap at 8,500, not too expensive, but not like he's 75 or anything like that. Offensively, on the Cleveland side, against Imanaga, I am getting to the Guardians, which is really surprising to me. They have one of the lower totals on the slate. Imanaga is not that popular. So I am surprised that I'm getting here. I would expect this changes between now and lock because I don't really know why it's happening right now. Jose Ramirez getting 4% ownership, Fry getting 5%, Thomas getting 4%. Nobody's really getting ownership on this team. I'm getting to 19% Ramirez and then 10 to 15% a piece of Fry, Thomas, and Santana. So it's probably mini stacks primarily would be my guess. I'm double checking that now. I even have 5-man stacks mixed in. So I don't really know why I'm getting there. Like Imanaga is not a pitcher that I love picking on. It's not great hitting weather in Chicago. There's so many good spots on this slate that are relatively low owned. Imanaga has struggled with right-handed power this year. 264 expected ISO to righties, only a 15.5% strikeout percentage. So maybe it's that, kind of driving it, that he has given up significant power. If you go back to last year, it's 181. He has, really struggled with it this year. So maybe that's driving it a little bit. But also, like, David Fry is somebody that normally I don't really play that much of. He is batting second. He's 2,400. He has like a 50% chance of getting pinch hit for. He's almost always going to get pinch hit for in competitive games once they go to the bullpen and you get a righty in. So yeah, that's another reason that, like, I'm kind of hoping this goes away for me because I think he gets pinch hit for so often. Like, he'll have an advantageous matchup probably twice, maybe 3 times, and then be done. So, again, it is the right-handed power. Like, that's probably what's driving it here. Those are the bats I'm getting to. But at the same time, I just think that I can probably find spots that I like more. Cubs on the other side against Bibee, no ownership there because they continue to be one of the most expensive stacks that you can get to. Tons of power upside, tons of stolen base upside. They are one of the highest upside offenses without a doubt. It's just that you are fully paying for that across the board. Whereas most offenses, even if they have a couple of expensive players, you can offset that with guys in the like mid 3K range. You really can't do that from a stacking standpoint with the Cubs. You have 3 guys at 5,100 or higher in Suzuki, PCA, and Tucker. But then everybody else in the lineup, with the exception of Matt Shaw and Carson Kelly, is at least $4,000. So you're really sacrificing a lot to get to the Cubs. And on these bigger slates, even though they do have the highest upside, it's very likely that cheaper teams are going to, at least 1 or 2 cheaper teams are going to be comparable, even if the Cubs did score the most runs, and the rest of your team around those cheaper stacks will just be better. So that's why it's hard to get here. But I am getting to 10% Suzuki, 5% PCA, Tucker, Swanson, Fields at like 2% on all those guys, 4% for Tucker. So I'm a little over the field individually, but it's a very difficult team to stack. I think the best way to approach them is probably mini stacks, mixing them into some cheaper full stacks. So far this season, 176 expected ISO allowed to lefties for Bibee, 149 to righties. So as you would expect, he is giving up a bit more power to left-handed hitters. Orioles taking on the Rangers in Texas. Nathan Eovaldi for the Rangers. Tomo Sagano going for the Orioles. 3% ownership coming into Eovaldi, 3% ownership coming into Sugano. I do not have interest really in either one. Eovaldi is $9,300, so he's pretty expensive. Suzuki is only $6K. Does have a decent matchup against Texas. This is a team that has underperformed for much of the season. They are missing Wyatt Langford, but he's also not a very good strikeout pitcher. And really, I think he's a pitcher that is also just due for pretty significant regression going forward. Also started out this year really well, relies entirely on command. 4.06 ERA, only a 4.6 xFIP, so not quite as bad as I would expect it to be. Only a 13.9% strikeout percentage, so not somebody that I really want to get to. Eovaldi on the other side, 26.7% strikeout percentage is good, but the matchup against Baltimore is a relatively difficult one. Also, for Eovaldi, he most recently pitched on the 27th. He threw 45 pitches, went 3 innings. That was his first start in a month, so probably not going super deep into this game either. You can see on the screen we have him projected to face, I think, 19 batters, and almost 20 batters. So that might be optimistic. But at 9,300, that's just like not the kind of guy that I really want to be getting to. And again, this goes back to like the Kikuchi conversation or risky mid-range pitchers in general. This is another one where like Eovaldi has one of the highest strikeout rates on the slate, but he's just not going to go deep enough into the game that you want to play him, especially, I mean, it's a good strikeout matchup against Baltimore, but it's a dangerous matchup overall. So he's a tough one to get to. For Baltimore, taking on Eovaldi, Gunnar Henderson getting 4% ownership, highest owned Oriole on the slate. I'm getting to 10, 11%. He's only 4,300, gives you stolen base upside, gives you power upside. Again, the matchup is not ideal. Texas also, even though they played 4 straight extra inning games, they've just continued to manage their bullpen really well. So this actually isn't a spot, even though it should be, where there's like massive add-on run upside. They only used one reliever yesterday. Jacob Latz followed DeGrom. He threw 43 pitches in the blowout win. So the entire bullpen essentially is rested, got a day off yesterday, and they just hadn't been overused really somehow anyway prior to that. So you do get a solid Texas bullpen following Eovaldi. None of these matchups are good, but the Orioles have good players. They have high upside players. I'm getting to 10% Henderson. I'm getting to 9% Holiday, 5% a piece on O'Hearn, on Laureano, a little bit of Mullins, Sanchez, etc. So again, Baltimore team that I think you can kind of mix in just because of their talent level. I think that's very similar to any of the other low owned spots that I've mentioned. Texas on the other side, about a 4.5 total here. I am getting to them. 11% ownership for Corey Seager is the high mark. This is just another team that I think looks pretty good and isn't going to get a ton of ownership because they're not the Astros, basically. Marcus Semien has certainly been coming around lately after a horrible start to the season. He's still only 3,700. He's batting third. He's in 21% of my lineups at around 5% owned. I'm 2x the field on 11% owned Seager. I'm 2x the field on 6% owned Garcia and 5% owned Smith. Right around the field on 5% Ozuna, 3% Heim, 4% Berger. So I am getting to the Rangers here against Sagano. Just not somebody that misses a lot of bats. 201 expected ISO allowed to righties this year. 241 expected ISO allowed to lefties. So it's not even like he's great at getting soft contact. I still think a lot of what he's done this year has been smoke and mirrors. And there's reasonably priced bats in this Texas lineup. The most expensive hitter is Josh Smith at 4K. He has first base and shortstop eligibility. Seager's only 3,800. Just looks like a pretty good spot, high upside spot. And then also the Orioles bullpen has actually been taxed a bit more than Texas. You had the 11-inning game the other day where Baltimore had to use pretty much all of their best relievers. Yesterday, they only used Scott Bluette and Gregory Soto. Soto threw 26 pitches, Bluette threw 17. So you'll have guys available that weren't available yesterday. But and it looks like they may have brought up Corbin Martin and recalled Yanier Cano, who struggled this year. But this is a bullpen that the back end of it is pretty solid. Like Bautista's good. Sir Anthony Dominguez is really good. Brian Baker's been very good this year. Soto has nasty stuff and sometimes is good and sometimes walks 100 guys. But the front part and middle of this bullpen is not good. So if you get to Sagano early, you can put this game out of reach and never get to those back end arms. You saw it yesterday with Texas able to just add on run after run. And there's no reason to think that wouldn't happen again tonight if they're able to get to Sagano and avoid having to get into the Dominguez, Baker, Bautista part of the bullpen. So I do like the stacking upside for Texas in that regard as well. Houston taking on the Rockies in Colorado, about a 6.5 to 7 total for Houston. Going up against Austin Gomber. Hunter Brown is pitching for the Astros. I'm getting a lot of Hunter Brown. He is certainly one of the most talented pitchers on this slate. He's $10,300 in Coors Field. That is the negative. The positive is he is facing the Rockies. So he's facing a minor league team in Coors Field. 27% strikeout percentage on the Rockies active roster against right-handed pitching this season. That is much higher than anyone else in baseball, over 3 points higher than the Angels and the Red Sox. Brown has the highest non-Mizorowski strikeout projection or percentage rather on the slate at 32%. 110 stuff plus grade is second best on the slate to Mizorowski as well. averaging 96.9 miles an hour on his fastball. That's up a mile per hour from last year. His command has been right around average, which is the same as last year. Stuff plus grade is up almost 6 points. Strikeout percentage is up 7 points. Brown has been excellent this year. Now he faces the Rockies. He's getting 19% ownership right now. I'm about 2x that at 38%. Never safe taking a pitcher in cores. You're just more likely to get unlucky there than anywhere else on balls in play, but also a pretty good chance that there's not many balls being put in play against Hunter Brown here. From a pitch type standpoint for Brown, also worth noting, he's a sinker fastball guy, primarily hard thrower. So, those pitches shouldn't be as affected. I do wish that he threw his slider a bit more instead of his curveball and changeup. His primary secondary pitch is his curveball. That's a pitch that does move less in altitude. I would really prefer that it was a slider, but that's being kind of nitpicky, especially on a slate where you just don't really have a lot of pitching. So I will take my chances with Hunter Brown here against the Rockies. Not particularly interested in Austin Gomber. If you are going there, it's because he is $4,200. This guy is less expensive than Gunnar Henderson and half of the other hitters on this slate. So, I've said what I have to say about guys when they're 5K. Obviously, that applies even more to pitchers when they are $4,200 and also negatively correlate with the highest owned offense on the slate. But also, I don't really want to play Austin Gomber. Offensively, Astros getting the most ownership, and I'm not getting to a lot of them. I did get them yesterday. I was around the field on them yesterday. That's not the case for me as much today. Clearly, I think that they are good plays, but I think what is keeping my ownership on them in check is all of these other offenses that I like and that are just not getting ownership. All the times that I've said, wow, I thought they'd be more popular. Like, I can just say, all right, hopefully Houston doesn't bury me, and I'm going to get to the guys I want from the Yankees. I'm going to get to the Red Sox. I'm going to get to the Angels. If you wanted to get to the Reds, you can do that. If you want to get to the Orioles, like, I'm a little bit over on the Cubs. I'm just getting to all these like 5 to 10% on offenses and kind of just taking the field against Houston. They're going to be popular. They're great point per dollar values. There is one guy with a salary above $5,000 in Jose Altuve. Power just posted the lineup: Isaac Paredes, Myers, Altuve, Smith, Walker, Diaz, Hummel, Whitcomb, and Dubon. Not the best bottom of the order. Not that it ever really is. Who's missing at the top? Or maybe they just moved. Oh, no Pena. He's been out. Still feel like they're missing one guy there, but maybe not. So it's not the best lineup. It's not the best hitters, but they're really cheap. They didn't really get much of a price bump here for cores. Altuve is the only guy above 5K. 4,300 for Diaz, a catcher with power in cores. Walker has underperformed this year, but we know he's a legitimate power bat at 4,100. 3,900 for Dubon. 4,800 for Paredes. Smith batting cleanup at 4,200 in cores. Just a really good spot to get to the Astros. So if I were to get to more of them, great. It just means that I'm finding, other low-owned ways within those lineups to be different. But clearly the best offense on the slate. It's just a matter of it being a 10-game slate. The field is still favored over them to be the highest score, have the highest scoring team, obviously. So there's a lot of different ways you can attack this. Perfect example of, DFS not being something where there's a correct answer necessarily. I'm telling you how I'd be approaching it right now. But also, if you told me I could only play Astros lineups tonight, I'm sure I could find plenty of Astros lineups that project to make me money. So if you want to play the Astros, find those lineups. But for me, looks, at least right now, like I'll probably be going some different directions there. On the Colorado side, against Brown, I'm technically over the field, but nothing too crazy. Brown is a very, very good pitcher, as I already mentioned. 3% ownership to Tyler Freeman and Hunter Goodman are the highest marks for the Rockies. 9% Hunter Goodman, 7% apiece on McMahon and Beck, 6% on Freeman. That's pretty much the extent of my Rockies exposure. Those guys are cheap / actually pretty good. Hunter Brown, 127 expected ISO to righties this year, 30% strikeout percentage, 34% strikeout percentage to lefties with a 113 expected ISO. There's nothing I can say here other than Coors Field. There's nothing about Hunter Brown that I think you can actively pick on. Kansas City taking on Seattle. In Seattle, Logan Gilbert, 9,500, Noah Cameron, 7,600, 54% projected ownership coming into Logan Gilbert. the highest projected pitcher on the slate by, for us, about 1.5 at 9,500. So third most expensive pitcher, highest projected pitcher. I am identical to the field at 54%. The strikeout matchup against Kansas City isn't good. I alluded to it earlier, but they have the second lowest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching this year. It is a big downgrade in terms of park strikeout factor. You're going from the most difficult or second most difficult, I don't remember which, park for getting strikeouts in Kauffman to, I believe, the easiest park for getting strikeouts in Seattle. Also just a bad park for scoring runs. So it is a big park downgrade here for Kansas City. They do have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, totals on the slate. It's pretty much neck and neck between them and the White Sox. So Gilbert looks really good. And also, like, by the way, he's a really good pitcher. Also, striking out 37% of hitters this year. So I misspoke when I said Brown had the highest non-Mizorowski strikeout rate. Brown is third behind Gilbert and Mizorowski on the slate. 37% K percentage in 45 innings pitched for Gilbert. That's up 9.5 points from last year. His stuff plus grade is up 3 points. His command grade is up 3 points. He's been over 1.5 standard deviations better than average in my outcomes metric that looks for strikeouts, groundouts, infield pop-ups, the most favorable outcomes you can get as a pitcher. He's been absolutely fantastic so far this season. So again, the only negative here is that Kansas City does have guys that are just good at putting the ball in play, tough to strike out. But 31% K percentage against lefties for Gilbert this year. He has given up expected power and real power, 201 expected ISO, 235 actual, two lefties. But again, striking them out nearly a third of the time. And then righties so far this year, 43% strikeout percentage. Again, he's only pitched, what did I say, like 45 innings? Yeah, 45 and 2/3 innings. He's not going to continue striking out 43% of the right-handed hitters that he's faced or that he faces. But strikeout numbers against righties have been great this year. Swinging strike percentage on his slider is about 4 points higher than it was last year. He has a 29% swinging strike percentage on his splitter against righties. Last year, he threw it 12% of the time. This year, he's throwing it 24%. So that's a big change there. And that's something that is really notable because pitchers tend to not want to throw splitters to same-handed hitters, even if it is their best pitch or a really good pitch. Kevin Gossman was the one that was really known for this back when he was with the Orioles. He was extremely reverse splits because he would just refuse to throw his splitter to righties. Also, he could only pitch with one catcher because he just wouldn't throw a splitter at all unless he was specifically told to. But that's a different issue. And then as his career went on, he started throwing it to both sides of the plate, and suddenly he's striking out everybody, and he wins the Cy Young. So seeing that splitter usage for Gilbert double when he already had good pitches, he was already good. Now he's doubled that splitter usage. It makes the fastball more effective. It gets more swings and misses, gives him another legitimate strikeout pitch against same-handed hitters in addition to that slider. So it makes a ton of sense why the strikeout percentage is up for Logan Gilbert this year. Noah Cameron on the other side, nice park upgrade for him. 11% projected ownership at 7,600, 15% of my lineups. We have him projected for about 15 DraftKings points at 7,600. Pretty solid point per dollar play there. Scary matchup against the Mariners. Certainly a team that has plenty of offensive upside, but there are also strikeouts in this lineup. 9th in K percentage against left-handed pitching since last year on their active roster. Also 9th in WRC plus and 7th in ISO. So again, another boom or bust spot here for a mid 7K guy, but it is a great park for pitching, limits offense, limits run scoring, limits home runs, gets you strikeouts. Cameron projects to just kind of be a guy going forward. Don't look at his ERA and think, he's amazing because he has a 2.79 ERA. He's only struck out 18.5% of hitters this year. Stuff grades out below average. Command has been average. XFIP is about a run and a half higher at 4.4 than his ERA. He is a middle-of-the-road pitcher, despite what his ERA says. But that doesn't mean that he has to give it all back in this start in T-Mobile Park either. San Francisco, or I guess offenses here against Gilbert. Kansas City, I always get to them, and I'm kind of getting to them here too. Bobby Witt's in 10% of my lineups. He's 2% owned. 8% Garcia, 7% Pasquantino, 5 apiece on India and Perez. This whole lineup is 2% or less. So I am technically over the field getting some stacks against Gilbert, but not by any amount that is really going to impact my night at all. That could very easily just become non-existent. It's probably a function in part of, like I said, trying to get negative correlation across my set of lineups, more so than liking anything really about KC, other than the obvious, like Bobby Witt's good. Seattle on the other side against Cameron, not getting here, and that probably has to do with the park because I do like targeting Cameron in general, especially when he's getting some ownership, just because, again, I think he's middle of the road. Cal Raleigh, 5% of my lineups is the only guy I'm getting to here. He's getting 2% ownership, so getting a little over the field on the best home run hitter in baseball this season. 33 home runs, I believe, coming into today, but not much to see for me from the Mariners, and the whole team's getting like 2 or 3% ownership as well. Merrill Kelly pitching for the Diamondbacks tonight in Arizona. For San Francisco, it's Landon Rupp. 5% ownership coming in to Landon Rupp. 17% coming in to Merrill Kelly. And this is a spot where it looks like I'm taking a stand at pitcher. Logan Rupp, not in any of my lineups. He's 6,800. If you get to him a little bit, fine. But it is a tough matchup against Arizona. We, as far as I know, do not have their lineup. Josh Naylor was a late scratch, I believe, yesterday. And he had left the game early recently as well. We did get their lineup. Josh Naylor is in there. So never mind about what I was going to say. Still no Corbin Carroll, but they did get Naylor back. So it is still a solid lineup, even though you don't have Carroll. Perdomo, Marte, Smith, Naylor, Suarez, Gurriel, McCarthy, 1 through 7. Those guys can all do damage. No Gabby Moreno right now either. But, solid lineup, tough lineup to pitch against. Park downgrade for Landon Rupp as well. So far this season, striking out 24% of righties, only 17.5% of lefties. 166 expected ISO to lefties, 151 to right-handed hitters. The Diamondbacks lineup is primarily left-handed, only 2 righties in there for him. All four hitters at the top of the order will be hitting from the left side. Perdomo and Marte switch hitting, Smith and Naylor just being left-handed. So tough spot to really want to get to Landon Rupp. On the other hand, though, Merrill Kelly, 17% projected ownership at 9,100. I'm getting to 41%. And I don't know if I've ever said those words before. Normally, Merrill Kelly is somebody I don't get that much of, but strikeout percentage is up 4 points this year to 25%. That gives him one of the higher strikeout percentages on this slate. The only pitchers pitching tonight that have a higher strikeout percentage than Kelly are Gilbert, Mizorowski, Brown, Warren, and a limited Evaldi. That's it. So 25% K percentage through 98 innings for him. Stuff plus is still below average at 91, but that's the same as last year. So I've mentioned it before. You do want to not just look at a raw number when you're talking about metrics like that. You do want to compare it to previous seasons as well, because there are some inherent biases in it. For one specifically, it does tend to discount change-up splitters compared to like sliders and hard fastballs. Just because of the methodology that they use. And so a lot of times you'll have guys that like Zach Gallen's a good example where even when he's good, like he's obviously not having a great year this year, but even when he's having good years, his stuff plus grade is below average. So you don't want to just immediately look at it and say, oh, his stuff's below average. He's striking out 25% of hitters. He's getting lucky. At this point, after 98 innings, you should be looking at strikeout percentage first. And it's up, 4 points for Kelly this year to 25%. The Giants also not exactly a great team offensively. They did get Devers. Obviously, that helps, makes them more dangerous. He is currently going through the same sort of stretch he did at the beginning of the season where he's striking out in every single at-bat. Obviously, that will end sooner rather than later. But overall, against right-handed pitching this season, San Francisco's active roster ranks 10th in strikeout percentage. They rank 18th in WRC plus, and that's with the Rafael Devers bump as well. Keep that in mind. So not a bad spot here for Merrill Kelly. Never feels good having this much on a 10-game slate, but at the same time, I really haven't had many pitchers that I'm upset that I'm not getting to. So if I had to pick between 41% Kelly and 25% Kikuchi, I would feel better about the Kelly side at least. So I am getting there. Offensively, Giants have a total between 4 and 4.5. No ownership coming in here. I'm not getting to them either. 3% Devers is the high mark for me. You could make the negative correlation case against Kelly, but clearly I am choosing the playing Kelly side. He has given up power this year, at least to some extent. 181 expected ISO to left-handed hitters, 178 to righties. So, can give up some home runs if you want to target that. There is power in this lineup with Devers, Ramos, Adames, Yastrzemski to some extent. But he does also have a 25% K percentage against lefties, 26 to righties. So you don't see any sort of real drop-off there from a split standpoint. On the Arizona side against Rupp, again, 3% or less ownership coming into everybody on this team. 3% Ketel Marte is my high mark. They're a good offense. They're not getting any ownership. They're not super expensive. The only guy above 5K is Marte. Perdomo, Naylor, and Suarez are approaching 5K, so they're not super cheap. But if you wanted to get to them, you certainly could. There's just other ones that I am personally prioritizing. I think there's a lot of teams that look very, very similar to Arizona, and they just happen to be one of the ones that I'm not really getting to. And then finally, we have the White Sox taking on the Dodgers in LA, one of the best parks in baseball for offense. For the Dodgers, we have Clayton Kershaw. For the White Sox, we have Sean Burke. Kershaw is getting 10% ownership at $8,000. Burke getting none at $5,500. I'm not getting to Burke. Brandon Eisert, I believe, is opening for the White Sox. Not getting to Burke. Not getting to Kershaw either. I wouldn't mind getting more at 8K. He is facing the White Sox, so that obviously is good. There are strikeouts to be had there. We have seen him get it together, as the season has gone on. He's shaken off some rust. Started out the year really slowly. Didn't score more than 10 fantasy points in any of his first 4 starts. In his last 4, though, not that, you want to make lineup decisions like this, but just to illustrate my point, in his last 4 starts, 24, 27, 15, and 24 fantasy points, including in Coors Field, which again, I don't even know if that's a negative at this point, given how bad the Rockies are. At least 5 innings pitched in all 4 of those. Went 6-1, went 7-1. He's thrown more than 85 pitches once this year. That was in 4 2/3 innings against the Mets back at the beginning of June, about a month ago. So they do still have, a relatively short leash on him. They pulled him after 69 pitches in 6 innings against Colorado last start, pulled him after 78 pitches in 5 innings against Washington 2 starts ago, 81 pitches through 7 innings against the Giants 3 starts ago. But Kershaw certainly is pitching better, gets this matchup against the White Sox. By all means, get to some Clayton Kershaw. I have no case to make really for Sean Burke against the Dodgers. For the White Sox against Kershaw, another team that for whatever reason I just always seem to play. And I think the reason is mostly that they're just always really cheap and usually low owned. Miguel Vargas going back to LA. He's only 3,100. He has power and he steals bases and he has multi-position eligibility. The White Sox suck. And that does hurt Vargas just because there's less RBI opportunities and you project fewer at bats because as a team, they're not likely to score a lot of runs. But Vargas individually is better than a $3,300 player. Sosa's only 2,700. Midroth's only 3,200 with MPE. So I'm getting 5 to 10% basically of Vargas, Sosa, Midroth, Slater, Benintendi. But, again, that's really just a value play, mixing them in, with my more expensive stacks or more expensive pitching. But you could find other cheap guys if you prefer. But I do think that the White Sox, just as always, are a little bit underpriced. I'm not getting to the Dodgers. They're another team getting mostly like 5 to 10% ownership. The exception is Ohtani. He's pulling 22% ownership right now. I only have like 3, which is very, very unusual for me. Even when Ohtani's popular, I almost always have a lot of Ohtani, which is pretty easy to explain why. So I'm not getting there right now. Maybe it changes, maybe it doesn't. It's certainly not anything that I'm doing intentionally. 176 expected ISO to lefties, 23% K percentage for Burke this year. So he has actually been solid against lefties, and then he's just gotten absolutely annihilated by righties. 15.5% K percentage, 280 expected ISO, 384 expected WOBA against right-handed hitters. My highest owned guys are still Ohtani, Muncy, Conforto. Highest owned being relative because I barely have any. But you're getting 5% ownership to Pages, 8 to Smith, 8 to Teoscar, 13 to Mookie. If you're going to the Dodgers, do not sleep on those right-handed bats. Like, obviously, Ohtani is still the one you want. He's just the best. I don't care what hand he's hitting with. Muncy is reasonably priced still at 4,600 now that he's not blind again, I guess. But the righties here, Betts they're all getting some ownership. But if you're going to the Dodgers, definitely don't sleep on those righties. That's what's really done the most damage against Burke so far this season. So to recap everything, starting at pitcher, you can see the highest projected pitchers. Now you can see the highest projected pitchers on the slate on the screen. Going through my top exposures if the slate started right now, which again, keep in mind, this is all very subject to change. Logan Gilbert, Merrill Kelly, Hunter Brown, Yusei Kikuchi, Noah Cameron, my top 5. I am happy with most of those. Kikuchi, I would not use the word happy. At catcher, Highest projected on the screen, highest owned for me was Carlos Narvaez, not anymore. David Fry, again, I think that's one that is pretty likely to change. It is a good value, point per dollar at 2,400, but he does have like a 50% chance of being pinch hit for. Ben Rice, Yainer Diaz, Travis d'Arnaud, those are guys I actually like at catcher. At first base, Nolan Schanuel, Carlos Santana, which again, I don't know why I'm getting to Cleveland, Abraham Toro, Josh Smith, Christian Walker. Second base, Marcus Semien, Jackson Holliday, Sosa for value, some Jazz, some Albies. Third base, Altuve, obviously, but I probably have him in the outfield too. Third base, more Toro, Ramirez, Luis Rengifo, Vargas. If you want to play Paredes, obviously that's great. I'm just not getting to a lot of Houston right now, at least in tournaments. Seager, Neto, Story at the high end for me at shortstop, followed by some Gunnar and Witt. In the outfield, Duran, Trout, Abreu, Adele, Rafaela, Garcia, Ward. If you play for the Red Sox or you play for the Angels, you are an outfielder for me tonight. Obviously, the highest projected guys on the slate, Ohtani, Judge, Acuna, those guys are all great if you can get to them as well. Highest owned stacks for me right now, again, very subject to change, but Boston, Angels, Texas. Highest owned 5-mans, Boston, Angels, Cleveland. Again, I do not know why I'm getting to Cleveland, but Boston and the Angels, I do actually like. Home run pick, staying outside of cores and staying away from the very obvious ones. I will go Seager here. He's been hitting the ball hard. Came extremely close yesterday off the top of the wall. Has the good matchup against Sugano. Doesn't miss a lot of bats. Gives up power. I like Corey Seager to hit one tonight. Thanks for checking out the show. Good luck on your lineups. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the Run the Sims projections. And use the PGA Sims for your golf if you're playing PGA tomorrow. Thanks again. See you tomorrow.